10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 293. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 293 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. We are doing a special holiday-themed episode that goes along with our tune of the month this particular month, and this will be the last episode in 2021. There is one more Friday in December, but I am going to go ahead and take that Friday off, which I've actually never done before. Give me a chance to hang out with the family, hang out with the new baby without putting out a show. So we will be back in January, the first Friday of January 2022. So do not worry when you don't see a podcast next Friday. We will be back. So for all of you that are joining us for the first time, or if you haven't signed up yet, I want to make sure that you know this is a listener-supported podcast, and that means it's people like you that keep the show coming out. We do not have any advertisements on the show, and instead we rely on this amazing community that we have built over the years to keep things going. So the way to support the podcast, by way of a small monthly fee, and for that fee, you do get a PDF with every single episode, including the Etude that I'm about to play for you in all the most popular keys, including concert, B-flat, E-flat, and bass clef, is to go to our Patreon site, and that you can find by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up, and you get instant access to every single episode that we have ever done, which is 293 at this point. So that's a lot of materials over there that you get access to. I want to give a shout out to our new patrons this particular week. Thank you to our new $5 patron, John, and thank you to our new $3 patron, Jeffrey. Welcome to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family. I hope that you're enjoying all those educational materials over there. And of course, to the over 350 members that have been with us at this point for years, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are the reason that this show keeps coming out in high quality each and every week. And it's been a very good year for the podcast, so thank you again. Again, to sign up for Patreon, go to 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up today. So I decided to do a Christmas tune for our tune of the month this month. Seems appropriate. One of my favorite Christmas tunes, Holly Jolly Christmas. And I think that this works really, really well to explore some of the concepts that we have talked about this particular month. Well, really 2 months, this past particular series, where we've been talking about creative ways to practice your scales. We've gone over a bunch of concepts, so if you haven't checked out that 4-part series, do so before you dive into this particular etude. So let's talk about the form to Holly Jolly Christmas really quickly before we dive into the actual etude this week. So Holly Jolly Christmas has some pretty straightforward chords and some pretty interesting twists and turns, but it's actually a nice, easy tune to play over. And I remember playing this tune for years at Christmas parties before all the Christmas parties got canceled due to the pandemic, and this was always one of my favorite tunes to play. I did a particular Christmas party every single year with a really good friend of mine, a pianist. We would do saxophone piano duo, and it's amazing how many of these old Christmas tunes are really, really hip. So one thing that could be really cool for you to do is buy that Hal Leonard Christmas Reel book. It's got so many cool tunes in it. And in fact, I pulled this one and the chord changes out of there. All right, so let's dive into the form. So this is in the key of concert C. It is what I would consider to be an A, B, C tune. And let's talk about that because the actual number of measures is not typical. It's a little bit atypical on this one. So the first A section is 8 bars, pretty straightforward. Second A section is obviously 8 bars because we called it A again. The bridge is 8 bars, and then we get a little bit of a weird section at the end that gets extended by 2 bars. So the final section, which I'm calling C, is actually 10 bars. And if you think back to the original vocal version of this tune, you can remember at the end, they do extend things by 2 bars with the way that the lyrics line up. So that's the only kind of funky thing. You will notice that the form is actually 34 measures instead of 32. So watch out for that 2-bar extension on the end. As I said, the chords are pretty straightforward. In the A sections, we're really just dealing with a 1 chord and a 5 chord. And the only other chord that's in there is a little diminished passing chord. So I'll let you find where that happens. Then the bridge modulates to the key of the 4, which we see all the time in a lot of different jazz standards. And in fact, we've talked about that on the show quite a bit, how that modulation to the 4 is one of the most common key changes that we see. So it modulates to the 4 and then quickly goes back to the 1 by way of a 3-6-2-5-1. And then in the second half of the bridge, we see ourselves meandering back to that 1 again, but in a really interesting way. So in measure 21 of the chord progression, make sure you take a peek and you analyze what's going on there, because it's very, very interesting. And then the final section, the C section, is really based around that 1 and 5 chord again, but we also see a 3-6-2-5 in that extended section that leads us to the end. All right, so there's a little analysis of the actual form. Now, what I want you to look for in terms of the actual material in the etude is I want you to look for those repeating scale-based phrases that we talked about in parts 3 and 4 of the Creative Scale Practice series, where we pick a certain number of notes, and then we also pick a certain rest value, and we play those across bar lines. This happens in several different places in this particular etude. So that's going to be your job, is to find where those happen and decide on what pattern I'm using, then listen to it and see if you like that effect. And then you can kind of transfer it over to your own playing. All right, enough of me babbling. Let's get into hearing the actual etude. I suggest having it in front of you and circling a couple of those repeated note patterns that you may find while you're listening to it. All right, here we go with the Holly Jolly Christmas etude. All right, so I'm sure even if you didn't have the PDF in front of you, you heard some of those instances of those repeating patterns. They definitely jump out at you, and it's one of my favorite ways to play, is to practice that a bunch and then come up with those repeating note and rest patterns. I think it adds a really, really nice dimension, and it kind of forces you to play over the bar line a little bit. Hopefully there's a lot of vocabulary in that particular etude that you can sink your teeth into. The Patreon members are going to get a copy of that etude in concert, B-flat, E-flat, and bass clef. And the $5 patrons are also going to get an etude demo plus a backing track for Holly Jolly Christmas. And I hope you can have some fun with this around the holidays. And again, I just want to thank you guys so much for a fantastic year. 2021 has been such a fun year to bring you all of these episodes. And I've just had a blast as usual making these for you. We've been getting great feedback in the Facebook group, and a lot of people have been emailing me. And 2022 is going to be an exciting year as well. Got a lot of topics that I want to bring to you. And I also want to start doing some live streams and things of that nature. So stay tuned for the year 2022. And again, I just want to thank all of you for your continued patronage in making this show possible. So again, jump on over to the Patreon website to get yourself signed up, and you will be in for all the fun that we're going to have next year. I hope you all have a fantastic holiday season and a great new year. Again, no episode next week. We are going to take the week off, and we'll see you in January. Going to close out the show here by just playing over the chord progression a little bit, just having some fun. We'll see you all soon. Really looking forward to what's coming next. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.